Another year has come, and as usual, every time we start a new year, we're going to be looking back into some of the most powerful teams we have in Genshin Impact. And in 2025, we're having an updated version of this, because in today's video, we're going to be looking specifically into some of the best teams that we have right now in the game. So without further ado, let's just dive right in. Arlecchino is here, and she's a character that many of you love. So if you're planning to swipe for pooling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 20% on all of your top-ups. With over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point, you can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount. Now, first off, I'm going to be looking into the top 5 teams that I think are the best right now in the game in terms of versatility when it comes to dealing with both single target and AoE situation, as well as having access to rather free-to-play friendly options for you guys to choose from. First off, it's definitely going to be none other than our Mavuika team. Mainly this team, the best one we've got yet is going to be Mavuika, Citlali, Xilonen, and Bennett. Now, I'm sure most of you would agree that Mavuika team, if it is invested, will be able to deal you insane numbers, so much higher than many other team comps out there in the game that it's very hard for other teams to compete, because Mavuika raw scaling damage number is already very high, and yet you also have access to Citlali and Xilonen, who is 2 new support characters from Natlan specifically to help Mavuika have an easier time playing within her team. This team can of course tackle in most situations. Obviously it's going to be harder whenever you're coming into pyro situations, and so in that case you can actually run a Mavuika, Furina, Xilonen, and a Citlali team to diversifying more in terms of elements on your whole team. And this team, as I've mentioned before in my specific Mavuika video, actually do very well in situations where Mavuika has a tough time dealing with pyro resisted enemies. Now, out of all the teams that we're going to be mentioning here in the video, Mavuika team actually has one of the weakest free-to-play friendly team, because definitely she relies a lot on her Natlan support character, which is Citlali and Xilonen. So if you're running specifically a free-to-play team out there, you may want to consider a team such as Xingqiu, Bennett, and Kachina, for example, as this team does pretty well for Mavuika. Upcoming next, we have Neuvillette Hyper Carry. Neuvillette is still holding up very well, because in terms of his ease of gameplays, as well as in specifically AoE situations, he just annihilates your enemies very well, especially when you have more of an invested team for him, which runs alongside with Furina, Xilonen, and Citlali. Citlali is a newly added character in the game, but I feel that she fits absolutely fantastically on Neuvillette team, for she having access to a bit of shielding. So if you're at the C0 level Neuvillette, it does help him quite a bit, and moreover, in freeze situations, your enemies get a hydro resistant shred, which on top of Citlali being a Natlan character that can use a Cinder City set, and if you have a Xilonen right next to her, Xilonen can go ahead and use an Akai Petra set. This team right here is one of the best team for Neuvillette to run right now in the whole entire game. Of course, you can use Kazuya in Citlali plays, but I do feel that Citlali is just slightly superior in terms of all of the supportive capacity that she has for Neuvillette. Now that definitely is a very invested Neuvillette team, but if you want to go ahead and run a more free-to-play friendly Neuvillette team, then you can run alongside with, you know, like Barbara, Fisher, and Sucrose. The tough side with Neuvillette free-to-play friendly team is that he still technically kind of wants Furina, because she's the only hydro character that has good sub DPS damage off field, helping Neuvillette out. Most of the other hydro character requires you to have normal attack weaving, or doesn't have that specific sub DPS capability like Furina does. So if you don't have Furina on the Neuvillette team, you're lacking a little behind. But still, this free-to-play Neuvillette team is still really good for you to run. Upcoming next is our Arlecchino team. Yes, Arlecchino still very so powerful. As I've tested before, if Arlecchino and your Mavuika is on the same free-to-play level, then their DPS capacity isn't really too much difference. The only difference that Mavuika actually makes is when you have a very invested team for Mavuika. But in terms of invested team for Arlecchino, you can run alongside with Arlecchino, Furina, Bennett, and Xilonen, and she does fantastically well. Very invested team for Arlecchino to run. Now in Furina's place, you can use Yelan to have a more easier times of hydro applications, because Furina is not going to be giving you that many hydro application for Arlecchino. But Arlecchino isn't a character that relies too much on hydro applications itself, because her raw DPS damage is already very high, and since we have Furina, Bennett and Shilonen being on the team buffing Arlecchino personal damage, even without reactions, Arlecchino damage is going to be helping you clear your path. And if you're looking into more of a free-to-play Arlecchino team, you can run alongside with Xingqiu, Bennett and Sucrose. Very viable team for most pyro DPSs out there, so that's very easy for you guys. Up next, we have a Yelan Hyperbloom running alongside with Yelan, Furina, Kuki and Nahida, right? This is a very invested team, yet Hyperbloom team out there, specifically a Yelan Hyperbloom team, is still very much powerful. This team specifically, you have a combination of both very high damage number sub DPS plus Kuki being on the field with the Nahida EM buff toward her, allowing her to do more Hyperbloom damage overall. So you're technically not missing out on any kinds of damage wise here overall on this Yelan Hyperbloom team build, and in most cases you're always going to be able to find content to clear, because Hyperbloom has always been very good in AoE situations, so that's something you can look forward to. If you're looking into more free-to-play teams, then you can run with Xingqiu, Kuki and DMC. Hyperbloom team has always been one of the more free-to-play friendly teams you can find, because we have so many characters to fit in and they do absolutely well. The only thing you are required is to build EM on your characters, or specifically Kuki Shinobu has her EM very well built because she's the character that triggers Hyperbloom the most, and then the rest is just going to help you do outfield as well as creating Hyperbloom cores. Other than that, we have a Nilou Bloom team still holding up to be one of the best team in the entire game. I really hold high regard in Nilou Bloom team due to the ease of gameplay this specific team has. It's basically the easiest team for you to play, because the only thing you need to do is trigger Nilou and then setting up all of your other team members. Then the rest is just basically maybe you having Nahida doing the driver on field, and then you have specifically like Yao Yao being on the field doing her elemental burst running around to heal your whole team, right? This specific team right here is one of the best Nilou Bloom team out there, because again you have Furina doing the off-field sub DPS damage from her personal DPS, but other than that, Nahida with very high EM build to trigger the Nilou Bloom cores does very high numbers. So in most situations, Nilou Bloom team will be able to help you clear content, plus the team is very much free to play friendly. This is a very invested version of Nilou Bloom team that I'm sharing with you here. Other than that, you can just have like a Xingqiu, Nahida if you have her, and then a Yao Yao for example, then that's already a very good Nilou Bloom team. Again, if you don't have Nahida, then DMC is also very good, so yeah, you can run it like that. So those are, I would say, some of the top 5 best teams that I use in most of my cases, and they do very well. Up next, we're going to be going through best teams of some of the best DPS character out there that we still have in the game, because obviously other than the 5 teams that we've just talked about above, there are many other DPS characters that's very good, and they have access to very nice team comps as well for you guys to use in many situations as well. First off, we have Mulanni team, right? Mulanni is an absolutely fantastic character. She's amazing in single target situation, and also she can do very well in AoE situation as well because of how high each of her vape shark bite attack can be, and especially when it comes to a Mulanni vape team. We just have the introductions of Mavuika, and wow, even when Mavuika can be a insanely good DPS character, she has access to very good supportive capability as well. And if we run Mulanni in a Furina, Mavuika and Shilonen team, your Mulanni is going to be doing very good numbers. Now the downside with Mavuika only is that her E skill uptime is rather low, only a 12 second, but while it does coincide with most of the other buff on Mulanni teams as well, so Mavuika is still fine. However, if you want to have an easier time with power application, then Xiangling is still technically going to be the best overall, therefore helping your Mulanni to vape a lot more consistently. Up next, we have Navia running alongside with Navia, Furina, Shilonen and Bennett. Holy cow, this team just does absolutely fantastic, with the introduction of Shilonen being here in the game that have specifically be able to buff geo damage as well. Running Navia in this specific team allows her to have an insane buff from the 3 support character of Furina, Shilonen and Bennett. Not to mention you have access to very good Furina sub DPS damage as well, and the consistent healing from Shilonen, allowing Navia to run on the Hunter set to give her a lot of crit rate, giving her a very much reliable crit rating E skill attack. So I'm very much surprised at how powerful Navia team can be, especially after Shilonen came. So obviously if you do have a Navia on your account, do try out this specific team. This is very good. However, if you're looking for a more free-to-play Navia team that you can still run alongside with, you know, Goro, Bennett and Xiangling, overall that should still be fine, and I'm pretty sure for a free-to-play team like this, most of you should have access on your account. Other than that, we have a Chaska Rainbow team. Right, Chaska is still one of the better Anemo DPS character out there that we have in the game, especially when it comes to her team build facility. Because Chaska technically has many different team comps that she can build in, but one of the more better team comp that she has access to in this case is going to be a Chaska, Furina, Mavuika and a Bennett team, right, allowing her to have a Pyro Resonance, not to mention, you know, a bit of a vaporized damage here and there for Chaska to do, and obviously Furina being here to help her with sub DPS power, Mavuika having access to another great buff for Chaska running alongside with Cinder City buff. This Chaska team is one of the best team for her to run at the current point. Other than that, obviously Chaska has access to many other free-to-play friendly teams that you can run. You know, like if you want to, you can run with Run Fischl and the Bennett. That's very much a free-to-play friendly team that you can have her in, so that is very good. Upcoming next, we have a Kinnish Burning team. Yes, Kinnish is still one of the best Dendro DPS character out there in the game because his damage capabilities is absolutely nuts. Obviously just gave him very insane scaling level, and specifically in terms of his team building, he works basically in a burning team, which is one of the easiest team for you guys to run into. Now the only thing with Kinnish team is that he technically would love to have an Emily on a specific team, right? So you can run him with an Emily, Dia and a Bennett, right? He is one of the better character that can make use of a Dia on his team right here, which is really nice. So obviously the reason why Emily just absolutely is a perfect mate for Kinnish is because she works well in a burning team. She does insane numbers of off-field damage to help his team do better, and then other than that, the rest is just like Dendro and Pyro character helping Kinnish to have burning reactions or trigger his skills within the kit to do a very high damaging number. I really do enjoy playing around with Kinnish because he has a lot of potential. So those of you who are investing into him, hopefully Emily does come back soon so that we all have a chance to actually pull for her if you are investing into a Kinnish team. Other than that, Hu Tao team is still holding up insanely well. Oh my goodness me. One of, if not the best team for Hu Tao at the current point is Yelan, Furina and a Xianjun. I'm not even kidding, because Hu Tao, the plunging multiplier, is technically higher than her charge attack multiplier. However, she can actually do two of this at the same time, because after she does her charge attack, she can quickly go into her plunging attack, which is a lot easier for you to do and access if it's a charge cancel in Hu Tao, therefore managing just stamina a lot easier. Obviously, you can use a Shiloni in the Xianjun place, but to make use of Hu Tao very high plunging multiplier, Xianjun is a very amazing character on a Hu Tao team. Now obviously looking at this team, you are looking into an absolutely high level of investment for your Hu Tao team, and yes, of course Hu Tao have access to many other team comps as well, just similar to like Alekino and Mavuika if you want to go down that route, but it makes her in terms of a very special character that can make use of Xianjun very well, other than the likes of Xiao or Garming who focuses mostly on their plunging kit. And then Alhaitham Hyper Bloom team is still holding up very well. Alhaitham personal damage is very low if you're comparing to Kinnish. However, he does absolutely fantastic whenever you put him into the right team, and it is going to be a Hyper Bloom team. Still one of the best team out there that we can run, and we have Nahida, Furina and Kuki Shinobu on this specific team. Still will be able to help you clear out of most of the situations, which is really nice. Other than that, we have Risley. I think it's just good to add in like a cryo team in this video. Risley cryo team is not something to laugh at also, because even though cryo team didn't technically have many buff and is falling behind other elemental reactions, but Ryo as a DPS character is still pretty good, and his teams are still being used in the Abyss specifically, especially with a Ryo reverse melt where you have like a Bennett, Xiangling and a Shilonen, or you know, even if you want to, you can also run a Shenhe, Xiangling and a Shilonen on that specific team in terms of reverse melt. Ryo does absolutely fantastically, or if you want to go ahead and have a more focused hyper carry Ryo, you can run with a Shanha, Furina, and a Shilonen. That team is also absolutely fantastic to deal with most situations. Now the only thing with Ryo, as I've mentioned, is that he does require you to have a C1 to open up his full potential, otherwise it is a little bit hard to play him, so it is something you want to be mindful whenever you are using Wriothesley. Upcoming next, we have a Chevreuse Overload teams, and in this specific case we have a Raiden Overload team. Still very good. The Chevreuse, obviously we always want to have her at the C6 level if possible. She is still currently on the banner right now, so hopefully you guys do have a C6 Chevreuse. But this specific team is really nice, obviously, because again we have really nice buffing from Chevreuse and Mavuika having access to Cinder City, and her passive buffing for Raiden to do more damage as well. So technically this is a Raiden hyper carry team. Obviously for a more free to play version you can still have Sarah for Raiden. Yes, Sarah is still one of the better buffer out there for Raiden Shogun, and as always Chevreuse Overload team is technically the most free to play friendly team we have in the entire game, yet is capable enough to actually compete with many other teams out there in the game, which is why obviously Chevreuse Overload does deserve to have a spot on some of our best team video right here today. And then lastly we have a Cloran Aggravate. Cloran at this point is basically the best electro hyper carry out there that we have in the game, because even if we're looking into Raiden hyper carry, Raiden actually does much better whenever she's in a Raiden hyper bloom team. But when it comes to the personal DPS and Aggravate team usage, Cloran being in Aggravate team is really good, and her ease of gameplay is really nice as well. She's very fast attacking, very high damage dealing number, and her team doesn't actually require you to have too much investment. You're running alongside with Fisher, Naida, and Kazuya, which I believe some of the character that most of you actually have on your account. Plus Electro Aggravate can do well in most situations, which still make this team really much versatile. So those guys I would say are some of the best teams that I can find to do very well in the starting of 2025 right here. Hopefully the video have been very fun and provides you with many other team comps options for you to build around with. Now I know that there can be many different team comps out there that are still very good, so if you're using those specific teams, feel free to leave it down in the comment section to share with everyone, and I always love to discuss more facility in terms of team comps with you guys there. Again guys, if you're having a bit of a trouble with pooling characters and you're planning to do a bit of swiping in Genshin Impact, don't forget to check out Loot Bar, as I'm sure it will be very helpful to you. I really appreciate you guys staying with me till this part of the video guys, and with that I wish you a super day, and I'll catch you on my next video.